Hello and welcome back to the next video commentary. This time we'll be focusing on the level design and how I do my development process. So we're going to begin back where we did a long while back, where we were designing stairs and making them more suitable for the level design. So here I am just adjusting the meshes and UVs to make sure that they're suitable and that there's no overlap, as I'll now need to be texturing this for the appliance in game. With the texturing this time, I'm going to be using a new method known as ID mapping, where I can assign different color values to a UV space in the software Quixel and then set each area based on what that color ID is to only inherit that particular material. This is quite useful if you're using multiple samples of things, which I have been using previously, and now I'll be using it this way. So here I have the other set of stairs that I'll be using for this process as well. These ones will be quite simple because the steps can always use the same UV, but as long as the following one is just changed in some sort of way, whether it's flipped or skewed, that way it won't seem like there's the same texture appearing and you can get away with quite a few things. It is quite important to make sure as well that the UV spacing between the entire thing is equal, which is something I wasn't taking much note of while I was doing this process, and it can lead to some quite poor results when it comes to the texture quality on certain areas where some have high fidelity and you can see blurry sections of others. But once that's complete, we can move on to Quixel and create a new map. Because these endpoints are duplicates of previous ones, they share the same UVs, which means they can just be rotated and flipped around to reduce the UV space and get away with some very easy overlap. Here I'm resetting transformations of objects I'll be using in this scene, which I've built using Maya as a test layout, just to see how the geometry would work. Because when the exports work as global spacing, it's important that the transformations and history are removed, as well as resetting their origin pivots. That way when they're imported, they're not at some very bizarre location, and having them sort of placed down where the player would be or in some corner or flat area, it means I can build them onto each other without having too much complexity. Although I wouldn't recommend building out your scenes in Maya and then exporting them to the engine, this does have some advantages where you can get used to the scale and make sure things are in relation to each other, especially if you're using a modular design basis where things have to be connected together and they have to seem quite well. But now we'll be moving on to the Quixel and I can work on the ID maps. So these textures will be used for a courtyard section, so I'm going for a rock and cracked design. And these areas have been duplicated quite a few times, so it's important that there's a higher level of fidelity on it, as they're probably quite close to this. But as long as I can duplicate it around a few times and use this material without any sort of errors or seams that will only be related to the one mesh, I can get away with quite a lot using this process. I'm also taking into account this should have an effective albedo and normal map, as well as some roughness. Seeing as it will be used on multiple meshes, I'd rather maintain a high level of quality that I can apply to all the meshes that this will be applied to. So because this has been used a few times, I'm making sure that I've got the final design that I'd like. That's why I'm spending quite a bit of time on this one. Now that that's complete, I can export it into Unreal, and all I have to do is make sure that the collision box for the mesh is fine, which will be seen by these very quickly going past cubes and linking up the textures to the correct thing. So I created roughness, normal and albedo maps, which are the reflectiveness, the color you're seeing and the displacement. And using here, well, as you can see here, this texture can be used multiple times to link up many components. It's a nice way to very quickly make a set of geometry. So using the scene that I had placed out in Maya, I'm going to recreate it in Unreal and really try and maximize the amount I can get out of this texture and material by using it as much as I can and onto these whole courtyard designs. It'll keep it a very selective style for this outside area, which is what I'm after. Because the courtyard sections are split into individual objects, I can very easily duplicate and rotate these objects around to create particular layouts that I would like. So here I'm blocking out the first area of my environment where I've got the three areas that split off the staircases. So here I'm making the brushes to have the extension come up. Brushes are a nice tool for quickly blocking out geometry, but they do have their place in the final design as well in flat surfaces, but they've been mainly replaced by the use of a static mesh. So using those things that I exported earlier, I can build up the scene, and the spacing means that I can quickly attach things together and not have cracks or places where you can see outside the wall. Because the pivot's in a nice relatable position, I haven't got to worry about tying things up very accurately, which can speed the process up very quickly. Here are the collision boxes. It's important to make sure that some of these have to be calculated very specifically. I'd much prefer using this method where I create the brushes manually, but Unreal has a tendency to close off the collision box, which can be quite awkward when it's working with rounded surfaces, as it makes them quite flat, and when it ends it, the player can't walk through things and it can cause some issues. This room is designed with a large arena fight style in mind, so I'm making light areas to highlight the player to get towards this area by having a small staircase leading up to a prop and placing large blocks of cover around where you can hide behind during the fight. Here is an environmental area where the player will need to navigate around the sewer section. So right now I'm exporting all the components that I use to generate that. So that'll be the sewer outline and the pathways that run parallel to it. After that I can re-import them into Unreal and group them together after their collisions and textures have been worked out, so that I can generate the straights and curves that will make up the sewer and build my way along that way. There's also a water component where I need to have the area flooded, so I'm creating volumes to generate that effect. There's a general visual area to it, a process effect that will give you water effects along the screen, and a volume that will apply water physics to the player. Here we can see where the sections of the sewer have been grouped up into particular directions, so I can generate whatever flow I want to of the sewer. It's quite handy for quickly generating out areas as they've already been pre-built and designed that way. So although the grouping is useful, it's not 100% accurate, so I need to split up the sections now and make sure that there are no cracks through the floor areas. So here's where I'm applying the ID maps to the staircase. Here they've come out quite wrong and I'll be fixing that after. But the idea is each area of that UV space would have its own colour value, and then using that colour value I could assign particular materials to each selection. So here I'll be making the section for the stairs. I wanted quite an old style look, so I went for some stones which were scoured up gravel in the end and added some rust and effects to them. I tried out with some other styles such as bricks as well, just to see how things would clash together, but you can see it there very subtly how the each material can be assigned to each area. It's very nice for controlling the final outcome and not having to export each sample and then fix it in post effects. So it's a nice process to use. So as seen here with the multiple collections of samples and that brief flash of the colour values on each component of the staircase, each area can be defined to a colour value and then it will only be cast to that section. So it's a nice way to get the general look of how things are, and it can be seen quite easily here. Here is the final result, and now it's a case of exporting the maps again, so albedo and nil will be in the primary ones and some roughness to improve the quality, and then applying that to the staircase because it's already got the UV set that you can just be transferred over, and now that can be used for all the staircases which use that design. Here is the final result of all of that. This video will probably be split into a second one to include details that were missed, but in the meantime, thanks for watching. I'll see you later.